Good morning and welcome. We appreciate all of you joining us today. I say good morning, but it's a good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. Debbie, welcome to you as well. Happy Friday for everybody out there. Go ahead and jump into chat. Want to make sure you guys can hear us okay. Tell us where you're visiting us from, what city, what state. We'd love to hear that as well.
Get us adjusted here. How are you?
Good, Debbie. It looks like you might be traveling this week. Are you at the summit?
I am. I'm at the Coeur d'Alene office this week and then back to Newport Beach on the weekend. So
good. So good. Debbie is the president and founder of Forward Coaching. For any who have not joined us in the past, my name is Shaun Farr. I am president at Landvoice, and we're thrilled to have you today be with us. Debbie, we've got another great topic today, one that's near and dear to us at Landvoice. We're talking all things expireds today, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you had asked me to focus on would be the thought of building a quote expired farm, right? And so I want to share with all of you a big mistake I feel that I made in my real estate career. I loved to call expireds. Well, let me put it a different way. I love the result from calling expireds, right? Because, hey, let's face it, calling expireds is hard work. And sometimes they're not always super happy, which we have to understand why, right? Because they're disappointed, they're frustrated. When your home does, it's really kind of a personal rejection, if you think about it, right? Because everybody loves their home. And we also don't know how terrible potentially was their real estate agent or the treatment that they received. So the first thought would be each morning when I was calling expireds, I would tell myself, actually, it was my affirmation. I would chant in between my dials, they really need my help. They really need my help. They really need my help. Because it put me in a more positive mindset if they answered the phone and they were a little bit cranky, right?
That they really need your help, right?
You really need my help. So step one is call those expireds every day when they're fresh. Because, Shaun, people often ask me, well, is it better to call them when they're fresh? Or is it better to call them in a week or even in a month? And my answer is yes, yes, and yes, right? Call them and call them and call them. So, Shaun, anything you want to add about the daily expireds and just your thoughts from the Landvoice perspective?
Yeah, I want to set the table on two things. Debbie, you're always really good at this, but we want to remind everybody out there, if you are calling expireds, honor the do not call registry. That's number one, right? So make sure you're using a service like Landvoice or something else that tells you if the number is on the do not call registry. That's really important to us. So that's number one, right, Debbie? You talk about that a lot in all of your calls.
Right.
And so be mindful of that. Obviously, calling or mailing or emailing or door knocking, these are all opportunities to get in front of the right people, right? These are people with hands in the air saying, we need to sell. And so we do love expireds from that standpoint. I did pull some numbers, Debbie. Do you mind if I lead with numbers real quick?
Please.
So we had the team at Landvoice pull all the numbers, and what we're looking at is year to date, or what I should say, January 1st through the end of May. And essentially what we've seen from January 1st through the end of May is we've seen a 28% increase in expireds since 2024 in that same time period, right? Again, January 1 to May. So 28% increase in expireds from 2024 to 2025. So there's a lot more expireds out there. Now, every market's different. These are national averages that I'm telling you about right now.
Right.
We also look at not only expireds, but withdrawns and cancels. And depending on your market, you might look at those as well. And there was a 13% increase when you look at all three. And the year prior, when you look at expireds, withdrawns, and cancels, there was a 12% increase. So kind of a little bit of a growing inventory, Debbie, and also an increase in the number of expireds that we're seeing in a lot of markets throughout the country.
Yeah, and it's going to get bigger. in the next couple of months. Now, when we have a rate drop, which is predicted, 6.5, 6.2, I mean, we've all heard these predictions. That may calm it down a little and start to see the inventory popping. But as I'm talking to literally hundreds of agents in a month, in 1 month, it has changed dramatically, where days on market much longer, need for multiple price reductions. And you know what, guys, most of the agents out there, they don't know how to get those price reductions. And because we're coming off a market where things sold so quickly, they either didn't ever learn to develop a good communication plan with their seller, or they just haven't implemented that. And so they'll go weeks without talking to a seller. The seller gets angry. And to your point about the cancels, the seller cancels the listing. So you definitely want to watch and work the cancels because there is no contract there. So legitimately, you can go after that. And, it might be also that they just, they canceled because they just decided they weren't willing to accept the price the market would give them. But you'll know that pretty quickly. Now, if it's a withdrawn, you have to talk to your broker about that, because a withdrawn normally is going to mean it still is under contract with that agent. We can't interfere with a contractual agreement. But you know what I used to do, Shaun, is when I would see a withdrawn like that, I would just call the agent and I would say, gosh, I hope this isn't a weird call, but I noticed your property on X was withdrawn. I'm just wondering, do you plan to put that back on the market anytime soon? Oh, those people are crazy. No, I'm just going to, whatever, let it run out. Well, do you think you might be willing to refer it to me and introduce me to them? Because then that's totally legit, right? If the agent is willing to connect me. But really focus on the expired, focus on the canceled, because sometimes the agent will cancel that listing out a couple of days before it expires. So you got to watch both of those categories. Okay. And then a couple of questions. Yeah, I know, Erica, you said in New Jersey, it's still crazy. Greenwich, Connecticut is still crazy. It's on fire. But then you take Newport Beach, California, and things are piling up and they're not getting off. So I think it's just important to know your market. And that's where our, company, we also love to recommend Area Pro is amazing because it can give you a lot of great market data, right?
Debbie, that's well said. I've got a listing right now that's sitting longer on days on market than normal, and I'm going to Area Pro, pulling all the stats and giving that to the seller, and it's helped us to kind of have some price conversations around price, right, and what we need to do with it. So absolutely.
So Dan is asking, what's the frequency in calling the expireds, and do I say the same thing each time? So Dan, they don't remember what you said before, right? Because we aren't that important in their world, unless you had a really lengthy conversation. But if it's a quick one, so let's say that I called Shaun and Shaun said, I'm not selling. I'm decided to keep my house. And he hangs up. Well, guess what? Tomorrow, I'm going to call Shaun again. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, Shaun, I called you yesterday. He's certainly not going to remember me. And I'm just going to start at the top. And here's why. Sometimes you just catch them in a bad moment, or they just talk to somebody that annoyed them. But then maybe they sleep on it for a couple of days and they realize, gosh, I really do want to sell. Now, a guy I know who's great at calling expireds, and he has this fabulous Southern accent. He's ex-military, so he's super polite and proper. He has this thing he says, if he's called an expired and they said, I'm not selling, and he calls him back a few days or a week later, starts his script again at the top, because his voice is a little bit memorable, sometimes they do remember him. And they'll say, I told you I'm not selling. He said, yes, ma'am, I know you did. However, I thought perhaps you've changed your mind. And how often they'd say, well, actually, yeah, we have, or we're thinking about it. And William, you're right. Not selling often means I'm not selling today, or it's just, I don't know you. You're a stranger. I'm not ready to talk to you. And I'm really ticked off right now. Right. So,
That's right.
so you can't be timid. The old sales trainer Zig Ziglar said, timid salespeople have skinny kids. But here's a stat that I read once. I don't know if it's still true, guys, but kind of makes sense. It said that 90% of expireds relist within 18 months. So some right away, some in a week, some may take it off the market for a year. But that was the mistake I made. I didn't follow up with those long term. Now, today we have such great technology that becomes your leverage. Like Brivity is awesome, the CRM most of us use, because we can put them on a market report, right?
Yeah.
That's easy. But I didn't have that. And so the manual follow-up was so unwieldy that I didn't do it. I just hit them. I hit them a few times. And unless they sounded really hot or specific, I just moved on. But if you think about, if you took a geographic farm, a neighborhood, I'm going to be the area specialist. We would hope to find something with at least 5% turnover. But it's hard right now to find that. Now, if I were working something like the divorce niche, the stats around that are potentially as high as 21% will list in a year. But if you think about the expireds, 90% in 18 months, doesn't it make sense to create some type of manageable system around long-term touches, and maybe if nothing more than a quarterly phone call, right, to check in with them? I don't know, Shaun, what do you think about that?
So well said. Those percentages speak volumes, don't they? On the 21% of divorce, 90% of expireds. One reason we're really bullish about expireds, no matter whether the numbers are up or down, we think it's just a really valuable source. Debbie, there's a couple other questions that came through. Irene asked a question, do you have a letter to send to expireds? And the good news is at Landvoice, we're preparing postcards right now for you for expireds with FSBOs and pre-foreclosures and even our neighborhood search tool. I have the copy for those, so if you want to email me, I'm happy to send those to you. But we're going to have some very well-designed postcards for you. Also highly recommend another company we're very comfortable with, Debbie, called Inked, that's doing handwritten with a robot letters and postcards or cards for you. And we've had a really good response rate with these handwritten, well, robot written, but look like they're handwritten cards. So I will drop my email in the chat here. And if you want to email me, I'll send you the copy to those different postcards that we're using for not only expireds, but FSBOs and pre-foreclosures and the neighborhood search tool as well. The other question is, where do you get your market reports, Debbie? And we mentioned we like to use Brivity. Brivity has a phenomenal, well-designed market report. And when I get a second or a third or a fourth no from an expired, typically that's where we're going, right? Is, hey, by the way, I've got a really great tool that's going to show you how much equity is in your home. Do you mind if I send you once a month a market report? And by the way, this is all automated through software now, but we simply enter their address and their name in, and then they're going to get an updated market report of what their home's worth each month. And Debbie, the other thing that we're seeing with these market reports is we know when they're actually opening them. And when we call the people that are actually opening the market reports, it's a way to get our foot in the door on an expired that keeps telling us no, that we can kind of keep the conversation alive by sending them value. We love market reports because, again, it wedges a gap. It builds a bridge to enable us to have future conversations with people right now that might be a hard no for us that don't want to list their home, right?
Yeah, so Brivity, Brivity, fantastic CRM, fantastic AI, and all the cool technology that you need to stay in touch easily. Also connected to Landvoice, also connected to Ink. So there's a lot of interaction if you're using Brivity. Now, if you have a different CRM, you do need to just check with your CRM. Say, am I utilizing all the auto plans? Do they have market reports available? If they don't, you could always do something like HomeBot and HOMBOT. A lot of lenders will supply to agents HomeBot access because it's great. The client sees them, sees you, and they provide it for free. And it is actually very, very cheap, right? So just a couple of resources. Now, let's go back to the postcards. So think of it like a web of connection. If you said, Debbie, can I mail some super amazing thing that's just going to make the phone ring off the hook with the expireds and FSBOs? The answer is no. Okay. You are the amazing thing. You getting to their door or getting them on the phone. However, if you can't catch them, or if they got that marketing piece, the postcard like Shaun's talking about, and now you call them for a second time, actually catch them just after that piece arrived in the mail. So if it would be a weird market. I have seen a couple in my career where agents just didn't make calls, didn't do much mail marketing. And I have seen agents be able to get some expireds just with the mail marketing. The magic, though, is getting on the phone and calling them. And I'll give you an example. Some of you guys have watched the show The Sopranos, right? And if you have, you remember, and our friend in New Jersey there, you remember the house that Tony Soprano lived in, which was in this really nice, area there of New Jersey. And years ago, I had a client who's since retired, but they lived in that neighborhood and it was kind of their farm. And they were on top of all the expireds or for sale by owners in that area. So, Shaun, their routine was in their pajamas in the morning, they would pull up the expireds. They had a pre-list package already put together with a little cover letter. They would just hand address the package because they were all ready to go. On their way to the office, 7:30, 8 o'clock, stop, knock on the door of the expired. If they weren't home, they would drop that package at the door, put that person on a little clipboard, a scratch pad on their seat of their car. And now at lunchtime, one day during the week in the afternoon, one day during the week in the evening, one Saturday morning, one Sunday afternoon, they would make 5 attempts to reach that expired. Now, remember, it was their bullseye. It was a condensed area. So it made it more practical. So I always had my bullseye where, hey, I'll go knock on the door, or maybe they say they're not listing, but they'll let me in to see the house. But if it's outside of my bullseye, that has to be a more qualified appointment, right? Just because of all the, drive time. They would usually, if they made they would usually get in front of 1 out of 3 to sit down and have a meeting. And they normally listed almost 80 to 90% of those. So find the system that works for you. If you're willing to knock on doors, if you only want to make the phone calls, if you want to do all of the above, what areas do you want to focus on? What price points? Please don't avoid the higher price points. Don't be intimidated by that, because that's where you'll often find even more opportunity. And there's a saying in luxury, you're better off to be the second spouse, the firstborn, and the second or third agent on a luxury listing. Okay. So guys, just go for it. And here's the thing. If they say to you, so this was my kind of way in the door, Shaun. If Shaun said to me, I'm not listing my house again. And I tried to probe, when do you think you might try? I don't know. I'm not doing it. I'm sick of it. You know, we're just taking it off. We need a break. Okay, Shaun, I can understand why you're tired of having it on the market. Now, I would never mislead you and say that I have a buyer when I don't. I'm wondering though, would you be open-minded to having me keep you on my off-market inventory list? So what I would do is keep you on that list. If I actually meet a buyer that I think is super, super qualified and a perfect match, I'll call you. I'll ask you, do you want to show your home? What price and terms? And then I'll bring the buyer over. Is that something you'd want to do? Would it be all right if I kept you on my off-market inventory? And they would usually say, yeah, sure, you could do that. I just don't want to list it again. No problem. But you know what? I don't want to waste your time ever. So would you mind showing me your house? That way I can take some notes when I'm keeping it on that off-market inventory. Then if I call you, I'm going to know it really is a good match. Well, yeah, you can come and take a look at it, but I don't want to talk about listing it. That's fine. I won't bring it up unless you do. I'd get in that door somehow, some way, because what I found is if I could get in that door, the conversation was often very different. And I had a chance to build rapport. And I would say to them, you know, I really appreciate you showing me your home. And I'm so sorry you had this experience. It must be really disappointing. What did your agent tell you was the reason? Oh, they just said the price was too high. Well, price is always an important component, but there's many other things that are critical. How the home was marketed, accessibility, who it was marketed to, was it marketed in the proper areas? If you really felt there was a plan that could be successful, would you be willing to look at that? Well, yeah, I guess so. Well, great. Then let me put that plan together for you. I want to do a deep dive into seeing what was done wrong the last time the home was on the market. And Shaun, I'll tell you what, even if you decide after we meet that you're not ready to list, won't you feel better having some answers and having a plan that will be successful when you're ready? And I don't mind investing that time because I want to be the agent you call when it's time to list. So let's get together in 2 days. See, I think of it as, you know, step by step, inch by inch. Got to get them to talk to me. I got to get in that door. If they're just willing to show me the home, but not willing to list, how can I leverage that into an actual listing appointment? And if they won't let me sit down with them and they won't consider listing, now I'm going to keep them on those market reports and I'm going to make a plan with them. So I'm going to say, Shaun, I'm willing to earn the right to be considered next time. Would you like me to call you each month? Because our market is changing very rapidly. 90 days will be too long. It'll be too many changes happening. In addition to the market report, would it be all right if I call you at the beginning of each month and tell you what's going on? So now when I call Shaun, I can say, I promised you I would call, and I can have a great conversation. Right?
Debbie, it's so good. One of the reasons I love that everyone joins us every couple of weeks is all the golden nuggets you just dropped, right? One is the importance of getting face-to-face with these people, and that's really the goal on the phone call. The other thing that I just learned, one small little tweak, I normally ask the question to the homeowner, what do you think was the reason your home didn't sell? And you just tweaked it for me, which was we put it basically on the agent. What did your agent say was the reason your home didn't sell? And creates an opportunity to step in and help them with more context on the value of their home, not just to focus on price, but what other aspects might have caused that home not to have sold. So little things we're doing to tweak in our business to get better every day. I love it so much.
Now, Oscar's asking about scripts. I think you have my scripts on your Landvoice site, don't you, Shaun?
We do. Yeah. So if you're a Landvoice customer, you'll see those when you logged in. There's a section that will say scripts and you have all of those there. If you're not a Landvoice customer, I'm going to drop a link here that's actually connected to Forward Coaching. We've negotiated with Debbie, if you're not with Landvoice, to get half off your first month and a discount after that first month. So it's landvoice.com/forward, and that'll get you half off your first month if you're interested in that. Also love to help you with other scripts if you want to. I've dropped my email in the thread. Feel free and email me. Happy to help you with those scripts that Debbie's also provided for us.
And in that packet, they are definitely the expired scripts. And I'll share with you guys, why did I pivot towards getting in the house versus trying to go so deep on the phone? Because when I started selling, I was 18 years old and I did not have good scripts. So I would just call them and say, can I come and look at your home today? And they would say it's expired. I'd say, oh, do you still want to sell it? I don't know, maybe. Well, could I come see it? Okay. That's what I did. So I got a little better, as time went on. And so certainly if you're phenomenal on the phone and you can book that appointment and only go when they're 100%, it's just that I felt of anyone I would risk that potentially it wasn't a super, like, I'm ready to list right now, but I'm still willing to go. It's darn sure going to be an expired or FSBO because they're trying to sell. We know they wanted to sell. And the great thing is with an expired, they were willing to use an agent, right? They just had the wrong agent. And now you're the right agent.
So many good questions, so much good value. Debbie, really appreciate you today. I love expireds. Guys, it's growing. In most markets, you're going to see more expireds, more canceleds. Let's double down on it. There is so much opportunity for those that are willing to have the conversations. We might consider them difficult conversations. If you have the right scripting, it gets easier and easier every day you do it, doesn't it, Debbie?
Yeah, don't overthink it. Here's the thing, guys. Just get yourself in their mindset. They wanted to sell. They are disappointed. They feel rejected. They're just a normal person that or you would meet at the grocery store. They're not a bad guy. Just call and talk to them. One last quick thing before we sign off. Please make sure that your own listings do not expire. So get in the habit of when you take a new listing, just set yourself a calendar alert. I like to do it 45 days before the expiration. So when that calendar alert popped up, it was a reminder I need to go sit down with this seller and try to get this listing extended. Make sure when you're at your listing appointment, once that listing is signed, you're spending a few minutes with that seller, set proper expectations using the data of what the market is like. And then establish with that seller a communication plan and don't let them down. Call them, provide the resources, talk to both homeowners because they won't share the messaging properly. If you over communicate, they will be more cooperative. If you don't communicate, they almost to spite themselves. They won't reduce it with you. They won't take offers. They'll let it expire and they'll list it with someone else and do exactly what you told them to do, right? So don't be the one that has those expires.
Phenomenal tip, Debbie. Thank you as always for joining us today. Even when you're traveling, she's amazing, guys. Really appreciate you, Debbie. Hope everybody has a good weekend.
Bye-bye.